It's undeniable that Payday 2 has perk deck imbalance. Overkill has stated that they're trying to balance decks, but so far we've only seen a muscle buff and the addition of Leech. Maybe Overkill has hit a wall and they don't know what to do, so I'm here to help them out. After a few hours in this game, I feel like I have a solid handle on game balance. I want to go through 3 decks that need buffs the most, and how to actually buff them so they have a reason to be used. The first character added to Payday 2 was John Wick, except just a less cool version, and also clearly not John Wick. The deck he came with is Hitman, which has not aged well. Hitman gives a guaranteed 1.5 second armor regen after breaking, a 45% armor regen boost unbroken, and akimbo weapon buffs. At the time of release, akimbo weapons couldn't just be used. Back then, if you wanted to use akimbo weapons, you had 2 options. Or nowadays, using akimbo is not restricted to anything. Just click on them in your inventory and there you go. Anyway, back to Hitman. The deck isn't shockingly awful in itself. The 1.5 second guaranteed regen is pretty handy. My issue with the deck is just about everything else. You can still be suppressed, so that causes problems for 2-shot setups. But going for a 1-shot setup is risky, as the 1.5 second regen isn't infallible. Besides, if you want to go for a light setup, just choose anything else. Even suit armor would run better due to the 2-second god mode. However, this is a more minor gripe with the deck. My bigger one is with the akimbo buff itself. Due to it, you are strongly incentivized to play with akimbo. Out of the 127 primaries in this game, 56 are akimbo. If you want to consider secondaries, then Hitman locks you out of an additional 75 weapons. Cut out the saws, and that's 200 weapons. So, let's say I want to play with more than just 28% of the inventory and still use Hitman. Okay, why? When using anything other than akimbo, the only useful part of Hitman is the 1.5 second guaranteed regen. That's cool, but armor has 2 seconds of god mode, which is a longer time in which you can be suppressed without risk of dying. Literally everything aside from the akimbo buffs on Hitman is outshined by armor in every way. Hitman is just a painful product of time, and it's a fact. So, how do we fix it? Here are some ideas that could be considered. First and foremost, move the buff from akimbo to all weapons. However, instead of changing stability and total ammo, make it increase ammo and ammo pickup. A lot of weapons in this game just don't see use because their ammo pickups are flimsy, and as most players need medic bags, ammo bags don't get invested in as much. Having a deck that could help with ammo will, instead of limiting weapon use to a small corner, expand it to the outer reaches of the game. 500 damage snipers, 150 damage shotguns, and revolvers will see significantly more use with this. They aren't bad weapons, people just don't want to invest in the ammo needed to keep them up. Idea number 2. Make Hitman ignore suppression in general and have the armor regen a little bit slower than it does now. As for how much, well, this needs to be wiggled around after testing, so I can't say for sure. Maybe start at 2.5 seconds and see from there. Going lower than 2 would be stronger than Anarchist's passive regen, but higher than 3 is basically indistinguishable from every other deck if they just take Resilience and Shock and Awe. Then again, Anarchist has more strengths, so you would still be vulnerable in those 2 seconds. And every other deck can still get suppressed, so you would have that advantage over them. Again, this is something that needs to be tested, and my mod making abilities are effectively non-existent, so I've not tried any of this, it's just theoretical. Last but not least, just give it some more armor. Really, every deck should have this. It's kind of stupid that you can invest 28 points into the strongest armor in the game, and then still get it one shot. This would eliminate the need for time-dependent quick fix, inconsistent underdog, and expensive frenzy, resulting in a lower barrier of entry for the deck. Combined, these buffs would allow for players to run more niche weapons, and still have solid survivability. A common pick for the worst deck in the game is Gambler. Gambler, upon picking up ammo from the ground, will heal you and your team, as well as give ammo to other players. Not a bad support deck idea, but like Hitman, is a product of time. Gambler came around before enemies shot bullets that wiped your health bar from anywhere on the map. Unfortunately, expecting players to run into bumblefuck nowhere to pick up ammo and heal a fraction of their health bar under this fire isn't very realistic. Consider that the spawn cap of common enemies in this game is 108, and that you have a cooldown for these buffs. Killing a crowd and picking up your earnings will net you 1 whole proc of health and team support. This proc has additional problems. First off, why is the health you get randomized between 32 and 40? That's stupid. Just give 35 and call it a day. You will get more health if you're lower health than your teammates, which is an interesting idea, but also has its shortcomings. Berserker is one of the most popular skills in the game, and if you're consistently lower health than Berserker players on your team, well, you're doing something wrong. This means that this feature of the deck sometimes just doesn't get used, and to no fault of your own. The issues, however, don't stop there. The ammo pickup boost is insignificant. Like I mentioned for Hitman, people tend to stick to weapons that don't need ammo support, so you aren't going to be much of a help in that department. Of course, that's considering you get the procs to happen. What am I supposed to do about ammo far away? Just not kill? That's not really an option. Death Sentence is very much a kill or be killed game mode, despite what anyone says. You can kite your way to victory, sure, but then why equip a deck like this then? Playing on long-range maps can make you feel pretty useless as a gambler player, and close-range maps are underwhelming in benefits. So, how do we fix this deck? The first, and frankly worst solution that I often see online, is just increasing the values. Instead of healing 35, just heal 70. Instead of picking up your teammate's regular pickup, pick up double. Sure, this will help the deck, but it doesn't address the fundamental flaws. Another idea I see is lowering the cooldowns, or just getting rid of them altogether. This is a less bad idea than the last one, but I want to offer something more interesting. Similar to how Biker has the opportunity to activate 4 times within 4 seconds, allow Gambler to pick up 5 times in 5 seconds. Or something like that. Again, testing needed. This means you aren't punished for killing a crowd, but you also can't just akimbo SMG rush into enemies and live forever with no cooldowns. The team support aspect of this deck is another demon to exercise. The health you get from Gambler is almost inconsequential, and if you have Berserker, you don't receive it at all. Let's just ditch that part altogether and focus on the ammo aspect. Just giving some pickups is 1, not really noticeable, and 2, not really that helpful either. What if there was a bar similar to Ex-President's health storage, but once you filled it up with, I don't know, 25 pickups for example, everyone on the team would get 10% of their ammo back. This would both be visibly noticeable and pretty helpful. You could also allow overflow of ammo if someone is already full, but that might be a step too far. One final buff would be just increase the pickup range of ammo boxes. I don't really think I need to explain the benefits of this one. With these buffs, Gambler would survive much easier and have a stronger impact as a support deck. Crew Chief buffs the team defense, and Gambler buffs the team offense. Ranged enemies will still pose a problem though, and unfortunately, without drastic measures, this can't really be fixed. The worst deck in the game, Yakuza. Unlike the last 2 decks, which are a product of time, Yakuza just kind of sucks. Some people make the argument that Yakuza isn't the worst deck in the game because it's good in stealth, and I guess if you want to consider both playstyles, then sure, Yakuza isn't that bad. But Stoic, Leech, Kingpin, and Armor are all useless in stealth. These top decks would get dragged lower than even Burglar considering their average uses between stealth and loud, and that's just silly. Let's not make that argument anymore, it makes very little sense. Anyway, what benefits does Yakuza give? First, more movement speed. Second, faster armor regeneration. Third, oh wait, never mind, that's all there is to it. Unfortunately, these 2 buffs scale with health. The closer you are to death, the greater these benefits are. For the movement speed, a maximum of 20% bonus, and for the armor regen, a maximum of 60%. Yes, this deck doesn't offer a whole lot in terms of survivability. However, the fact that you need to be at low health is quite painful to the deck. This means that playing health-based builds is just not an option, as you will have no benefit from the deck at all. And so, you end up getting locked into Frenzy with ICTV for 2-shot if you want any survivability at all. Of course, you could play at low health with other armor, but that's really risky, and the benefits don't even come close to being worth the risk. The armor regen is nice, but remember that you're still susceptible to suppression. The move speed? Well, who cares really? Movement speed isn't that important in this game, unless you have the ICTV on. And even then, I've seen some patient players ditch movement skills on that too. Overall, the end result of having Yakuza with ICTV is this, and the end result of having Yakuza with anything else is this. So how do we fix it? First, just give some benefits outright. The movement speed boost is not that important, so just have it exist by default. Since the deck gives a total of 60% more armor recovery, allocate 20% of that to just being default as well. The rest can scale with health as intended. This allows playing with more builds than just ICTV Frenzy to gain any benefit, and will give people who just want to move faster a deck they can equip without dying constantly. The survivability of playing ICTV still heavily outweighs lighter setups. So here's an idea. For the last decks, I tried to stay within the bounds of the original idea of the deck, but come on, it's Yakuza. I take some liberty in saying this, but how about some dodge? Not too much, maybe 40%. Sounds a bit strong, right? Well, have it scale with health, just like the armor regen. At full health, you get no dodge. At 0 health, you get 40%. This, combined with the armor regen, allows low armor Yakuza to be risky but survivable. And since ICTV inherently has more survivability from 2-shot, it doesn't get impacted by the dodge anyway. Since we've already left what the original deck was, how about another more out there idea? I've seen people suggesting adding a 1-second God mode with a short cooldown to the deck, and unlike the rest of my ideas so far, I've actually played with this before in Pro Mod. However, it's sort of underwhelming. Instead, how about a new perk deck throwable, since every deck past Biker came with a unique one anyway. A couple seconds of invincibility on a cooldown. Combined with the movement speed, I think this could make for a pretty unique experience. As for the numbers, well, I don't even know. Leech's 10 seconds is way too long. Kingpin's 6 is perfect, but then the throwable would just be an Injector ripoff. Going for something too short would make the throwable mostly useless. Kingpin has a cooldown 5 times longer than the use itself, but can be lowered in many ways. How about keeping that ratio, but with no way to lower the cooldown? 3 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. Maybe, but this could end up being a really strong panic button when combined with some bonus movement speed. So what about just a flat limit? Say 5 uses of 3-second God mode per heist. Maybe, but this could end up being flimsy for longer heists. Or just scrap this idea in general. It's a pretty far call from the original deck anyway. I just wanted to throw out some ideas to make Yakuza more entertaining. Well, what do you think of these changes? If you're a modder out there and want to try making these ideas, I would enjoy playing them. And if you work for Overkill and want to add these ideas, I won't even ask for credit. I play every deck in the game with exception of Leech, so I just want to make them more interesting. In my eyes, the worst decks in the game are just the least interesting ones, but I recognize that the community sees it differently than I do. The changes I propose are meant to make the decks more interesting, easier to get into, and of course, stronger. Mix and match these ideas and add some of your own. I'd love to see some original ideas for buffing these decks, and any others really, in the comments. Maybe I'll do some more videos on the balance of the game, as I don't really know anyone who's satisfied with what we have right now.